Democracy has been defined in many ways. We would all agree that democracy includes government. Let's see if we can, each one of us, sharpen of democracy. We know that democratic words and forms have been written into laws. But it is the way people practice democracy that really counts.
Do it in the face of power. It often means sacrifice, great sacrifice. People have lost their lives for doing this. But ultimately, the heart is the place in which we learn what's worth living for, and therefore what's worth dying for. And I don't mean to overly dramatize that. I'm not talking about everybody going to some kind of martyrdom. I'm simply talking about our capacity and growing our own capacity to express our deepest humanity in places where it would seem unwelcome, in places where the reception may be hostile, and to trust that in the end, what's going to count as we're taking our last breath is our own answer to the question, was I fully present in the world with my own truth, with my own identity and integrity, as much as humanly possible, as much as I was able, as much as I knew how? This is not about perfection.
Many students agree that two important signs of democracy are shared respect and shared power. Let's take shared respect first. Sharing respect means that each shares the respect of all. Not because of his wealth, or his religion, or his color, but because each is a human being and makes his own contribution to the community. One sign of shared respect in a community is that everybody is given a fair chance to develop useful skills and the chance to put these skills to effective use. And there is shared respect if various groups in the community recognize each other's right to hold different faiths and opinions.
Think of how we started. Think of that. This country was founded by a group of slave owners who told us all men are created equal. Oh yeah, all men, except for Indians and niggers and women, right? Always like to use that authentic American language. This was a small group of unelected white male land-holding slave owners who also suggested their class be the only one allowed to vote. Now that is what's known as being stunningly and embarrassingly full of shit.
And now let's see how we spot the second of the two signs of democracy, shared power. Most observers agree that there is true democracy in a community only if there is shared power. That is to say, only if many people have a share in making decisions that the community will support with force if necessary. More specifically, you can say that power is shared wherever regular popular elections are authorized and are actually held. There is shared power wherever people actually get out voluntarily and vote. And if they can vote without interference or pressure from anybody.
You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right.
The two most important signs of democracy, then, are shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on many conditions. Let's consider two of these conditions: economic balance and enlightenment. Economic balance means that the community contains a large middle-income group.
A relationship between economic balance and democracy has been noted and reported for centuries by students of society. Aristotle said that a government made up of middle-income people has the best chance to be democratic. That was 2,000 years ago in Greece. And well over a century ago in America, James Madison warned that extremes of riches and poverty set group against group.
How to balance the scale, I'd like to talk about some things that bring us together. Things that point out our similarities instead of our differences. Because that's all you ever hear about in this country is our differences. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about, the things that separate us, things that make us different from one another. That's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the fucking money. Fairly simple thing, happens to work. You know, anything different, that's what they're going to talk about. Race, religion, ethnic and national background, jobs, income, education, social status, sexuality, anything they can do, keep us fighting with each other so that they can keep going to the bank. You know how I describe the economic and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all of the taxes, does all of the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class. Keep them showing up at those jobs.
Another important condition for democracy is enlightenment. Making information available to citizens and giving them the skill with which to judge it. As public education increases, democracy grows. In checking a community for democracy, we must find out whether it provides schools adjusted to the needs of its young people. Just being able to get books and newspapers is no guarantee of democracy. The newspapers of a real democracy meet these tests: balanced presentation of news, disclosure of source, competence of the staff.
Yes, that's right. I mean the responsibility of a free press and other forms of communication like the radio and the movies to enlighten the people into democracy.
There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest, the good guys win. The police are on your side. God is watching you. Your standard of living will never decline. And everything is going to be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke. Every one of those items is provably untrue at one level or another, but we believe them because they're pounded into our heads from the time we're children. That's what they do with that kind of stuff. They put it in the heads of kids. They pound it in there because they know kids are too young to be able to mount a sophisticated argument against these kind of ideas. And so kids, and up to a certain age, by the way, kids are going to believe everything a grown-up tells them, everything. So kids never learn to question things. Nobody questions things in this country anymore. Nobody questions things. Why? People are too fat and happy. People are way too fucking prosperous for their own good. Everyone's got a cell phone that'll make pancakes and rub their balls now, you know? So nobody wants to rock the boat. And people just gizmo. Americans have been silenced, bought off and silenced by gizmos and toys. And as a result, no one's ever learned to question things. No one questions things in this country anymore. No one questions things. Now, okay. That she would be a natural to get children to read, which misses the point completely. Not important to get children to read. Children who want to read are going to read. Kids who want to learn to read are going to learn to read. Much more important to teach children to question what they read. Children should be taught to question everything, to question everything they read, everything they hear. Children should be taught to question authority. Parents never teach their children to question authority because parents are authority figures themselves and they don't want to undermine their own bullshit inside the household. So they stroke the kid and the kid strokes them and they all stroke each other and they all grow up all fucked up and they come to shows like this.
When we examine any democratic community, large or small, or just average, we find that we can separate out two distinct signs of democracy: shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on at least two conditions in the community: economic balance and enlightenment. There is no standing still. The more economic balance and enlightenment, the more shared respect and shared power. Democracy is something that's never finished. It wanes with neglect, and it grows with care. If a community works to balance its economy, and if it works to enlighten its citizens, such a community can achieve shared respect. And it can achieve shared power.
American democracy did not start with those people in Washington, D.C., far away with all the power and money dictating something. It started with we, the people, calling this democracy into being. And my sense is that it's we, the people, who need to call it back to its deepest purposes and its most significant goals. We're not going to be able to do that if we don't learn to talk to each other with respect and civility. And so in the book, I'm very interested in how it is that we develop in our local lives all of those settings where we have an opportunity to interact with each other as citizens and reweave and restore the civic community on which democracy depends. This is my 9th book, and while the topic is a new one for me, democracy and American politics, it shares a very important commonality with everything else I've written. And so this book is an appeal to remember that politics, American democracy, isn't just what happens out there in Washington, D.C. or in the state capitol, but it's also about what happens in here. And we need to take responsibility for both the inner and the outer dimensions of the dilemmas of democracy. We need, in order to be good citizens of a democracy, chutzpah and humility. The chutzpah to say what it is we care about, to make a claim on our society and on each other, and the humility to know that we have to listen to others because none of us has the whole answer.
By working hard at it, the citizens of any community can achieve democracy.